So we are all here. We have attendees, Arnolfo and Mervyn. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we can maybe give it like one more minute to see if there's more attendees joining, just to make sure we allow. I know there's class schedules and everybody is busy, but it's great for people making the time to learn about certifications and the programs IPC has to offer. We do have an expert with us, Joe Williams. He is the Director of Certification. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody.
And then most of you probably know Aaron and I. I'm the Senior Director of the IPC Education Foundation, and Aaron is our Director of Education Programs Manager. So he works very closely with the chapter. So we're not unfamiliar. You all probably know us, but I think this is a great opportunity for us to learn more about this great topic, and so the value behind it. And so we wouldn't have anyone better than Joe Williams to talk us through. So Joe, you can go ahead, and then Aaron will be able to manage some of the questions during and afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you, Charlene. Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Williams. I'm the Director of Certification at IPC. I spent a career developing certification programs. Most recently, it was for pharmacists and rehabilitation counselors. And up until about a year and a half ago, I joined IPC to help the electronics industry in developing and crafting their certification programs to meet the needs of their industry. I'd like to thank Charlene again and Aaron for letting me take 15 to 20 minutes to give everybody a high-level overview of IPC certification programs, the value behind them, and then a little bit on how they're developed, because that's where a lot of the value comes into them. So I will try not to go too deep into the weeds and try to keep it at a very high level, but we can get started. Oh, if you give me 1 second, I'm not moving forward. There we go. So first is, what is certification? Everybody keeps on hearing about diplomas, licensure, certificates, and certification. While they're all similar in nature, they have their different nuances to them. Certification, in essence, is awarded by third-party organizations, such as IPC, for demonstrating a candidate's ability to a certain knowledge domain or certain requirements. They're typically job-based in nature. However, they can be criteria-based in nature. IPC's main certifications are criteria-based, and they revolve around IPC standards. What the certification programs do, in essence, is they measure a candidate's ability to read, write, and interpret IPC's various standards. Now, where's the value in that? Well, there's a lot of it, actually. IPC certifications are recognized globally, and last year there's a large number of candidates. We've had over 108,000 from roughly 6,900 companies. It's a lot of organizations in the electronics industry utilize this certification to have their employees demonstrate their knowledge to the standards. Achieving the certification allows you to earn recognition amongst your peers by demonstrating your ability to navigate IPC standards. Now, that's a quick overview of IPC certification. I want to get into how these programs are developed, because this is where we get some additional value. What IPC is doing with all their certification programs is essentially a 5-step process. You start out in developing them by utilizing what is known as a job task analysis. And that's essentially, you get a group of subject matter experts from across the industry. We've taken people from aerospace, military, medical, and gathered their input on, what knowledge do you need? What tasks do you need to do in order to do this job well, or understand this criteria, the standards well? We gather that information, and then we start sending out surveys to the field to say, okay, how important is this task or knowledge, and how frequently do you use this in day-to-day? So therefore, we're getting input from the industry telling us what is important. Then the part that students don't like the most is questions. I mean, there's usually an exam at the end of all of these certification questions, but in order to do that, we need to develop the questions on the back end. We do that by having what is known as an item writing development workshop, where we take another set of subject matter experts and have them write questions. Without getting too deep into the weeds with this one, there's certain ways we can do that to make sure that the questions are fair and that the questions are not too hard or impossible or not too easy that everybody gets them right. But we essentially gather a large number of questions for our examinations. The next step to that, before it even makes it out to the public, is we get yet a third group of subject matter experts, and we tell them, take the test. But they're not taking the test to see if they get all the answers right. They're actually taking the test to determine how hard do you think these individual questions may be. And I know depending on what you studied in school, you may have or may not have heard of the Oracle of Delphi. We do something similar. It's called Adelphi Study, and that relates to just a predictive manner of how hard do you think this exam will be. So what we will do is then these people will take a whole bunch of questions, say this one's hard, this one's easy, and then we essentially make them fight about it, which is the fun part of saying, I feel this one is too difficult because of X, Y, and Z. Or I feel like this one is too easy because of X, Y, and Z. We then gather all of that data and we do some math behind it to say this is the mean difficulty of the exam. And this is what we expect people who are demonstrating their proficiency to should be able to pass or fail. Once we do that, we put together the test, but we don't just leave it sitting there. We constantly review the test. We make sure that the questions don't evolve differently and saying something that was harder then becomes easier for one reason or another, or it becomes harder for one reason or another. The standards change, the standards evolve. As technology grows, the questions have to grow with it. And then at the bottom of the end, it's the hallmark of a certification program is there's a renewal component to it. You have to have some way to continually measure your proficiency. This is what adds this value to the certification. So if you are able to gather and maintain this credential and then continually renew it, employers and college professors and everybody knows that, okay, you understand this knowledge. You have demonstrated that you understand this knowledge, and now you can go out to the workforce to utilize this knowledge at your job. I went through that very fast. If anybody has questions at that later, I'd be more than happy to get into details. I do want to be nice and make sure I finish within 20 minutes for Charlene and Aaron to make sure that they have enough time for questions. With that said, I want to talk about just two of IPC's main certifications and the most popular certifications, and then the areas of endorsements that they cover. First, we have the Certified IPC Specialist. This certification program is developed for candidates that are looking to demonstrate their competency in the use of a specific standard. And they want to demonstrate that knowledge to a class 1, 2, or 3 products and being able to read and navigate these standards. Each of these programs have multiple endorsements that one could test to because we understand these standards are very different in different industries, different companies that within the industry utilize different specific standards depending on the job. So we have the 610, 001, 620, 600, 7711, and 6012. Each one of these have different prerequisites to them and workmanship components to demonstrate the knowledge. I will explain a little of it later and explain where you can go to find further information, but I don't want to get into too much detail at this point in time. But each one of these endorsements have a variety of uses. If you're looking to be an operator or an engineer in the field, you may want to take the CIS 610, and so on and so on. Our second most popular exam is the Certified IPC Trainer. This one is a little bit different. This certification is geared towards those who have a position in the field to either teach or educate other people in the field. They have the same endorsements. It goes into a little bit more in-depth knowledge of each of these standards, but they have an additional training requirement needed to maintain this credential. This training requirement is essentially you need to continue to train. It's a practice what you preach type of thing, where we want to make sure that you are truly educating the field and keeping up your skill sets as a trainer while maintaining the knowledge in one of these endorsements that you choose to certify to. So those are the two main programs. IPC has a few other certification programs, and we also have a couple other that we're developing. So the CEPM is a certification program that's already out, and it's for certified electronics project managers. That's essentially job-based certification for program managers out into the field. We're developing a new one for a certified IPC inspector. And it's basically we're going to encompass the job roles of inspectors in the field, depending on what you inspect and how you do utilize these standards for your job. So that one's in development, and I hope to put that out into the field for the next few years. IPC currently and routinely takes a look at the industry and figures out where there's a need for training and education, and we kind of look into develop new programs for that. So we have a large number of people come through, and I'm sure if we haven't specifically hit your job yet, I'm pretty sure we will in the next 3 to 4 years. We are on a very ambitious task of creating and developing a good number of certification programs over the next few years. So I briefly gave a very, very high level overview of these certification programs, but how does someone get a certification? Like, how do we do this? I mean, we know we have to take a test. We talked about developing of the test. You know, how hard is it? It's actually not hard. Certification programs, in essence, are not meant to be restrictive. You need to have a certain level of prerequisites. There's an eligibility criteria. Depending on the program and which one they have, there's different programs, different prerequisites. Some may be you just need to provide personal demographic information because we need to know who is attempting to certify the test. This may be name, last name, email address, address, the company you work for. Others may have more restrictive ones that say you need to have been in the field for 3 years. We need to understand that you have a prerequisite level of knowledge because the certification may be slightly more advanced. Each one of these eligibility criteria are located in the respective policies and procedures for them, for the programs, but they vary from program to program. So if anybody has any specific questions about one of our programs or one that we talked to today, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If not, all of this information is available on our website, and we can direct you to that later. The second step is, well, you actually need to go and either take the assessment or a corresponding class to help you along with that. We have multiple partners with local IPC certification centers globally. We've partnered with a lot of training centers that will help meet your needs. So a lot of them is, we have a lot of them that they offer essentially crash courses or corresponding programs that IPC has developed to help you through that. Everybody knows the ACT and the SAT. They're should be fairly common exams for students. We essentially made the prep course similar to that. How ACT usually, like the week before, they give you like, okay, here's a study guide, here's a prep course, here's a week to cram all this information into your heads. IPC has developed something similar to that, irrespective to each one of these endorsements for each one of IPC's programs. They are not mandatory, but most students find them extremely helpful. It gets you down in the weeds, and it covers content that will be reflected on the certification exam. In order to successfully be awarded certification, you have to meet all of the prerequisites. So for some of these endorsements, you have to demonstrate your skills in a workmanship component and then pass a corresponding multiple choice assessment. This could be tricky for some people who have never touched a soldering iron before, but if you have, it should be a piece of cake. But it all depends on your level of experience. But that's the prerequisites that are located in some of the CIS and CIT programs that have a workmanship component. I'm going way too fast, so I can take a stop now if anybody has questions. If not, I can go through, I think, the last final slide.
Yeah, we do have a few questions.
Sure.
So we'll start with the higher level question that we received. How long does it take to make certification from your team?
To make a certification exam?
Well, just referencing the 5 steps from a few slides ago.
Yes, so that could take a process of 1.5 to 2 years. It is lengthy because there's a lot of math behind it, and you have to make sure that we're measuring things fairly and accurately. So building the survey, meeting with the subject matter experts, that usually takes a couple months. Then you take another couple months to write a lot of questions. We can't just get away with writing 20 or 30 questions. We need to have maybe 150, 200 questions for each topic. That's because we want to make sure that not everyone gets the same test, but we want all the tests to be fair and equal. So there's a lot of math that goes into behind it to say that person A is taking test A, and it is a difficulty level of 0.72. While person B is taking a different exam, test B, but that difficulty rating is right around the same at like 0.71 or 0.72. We need to make sure that each exam is fair and equal, and that takes time in the background to develop. That goes back to that cut score workshop and that Adelphi study where we have the subject matter experts talk and argue about the difficulty ratings. So once all of that is said and done, in order to get it out the door, it takes roughly about 2 years, if not a little bit longer. That's actually a really good question.
Thanks. So on a similar line of thinking, it takes that long to make it. How long does it take to earn an IPC certification?
That is different. That could be done quickly. If you take the corresponding courses that go along with it, usually if you meet all the prerequisites and successfully pass the exam, you can get it done in about a week. Okay. Most people take it a couple days, a week. If you happen to fail the exam and you need to retake it, we have a cool down period, so it may take a little bit longer then. But the average candidate we've seen go through takes about a week, and they take the corresponding course. A lot of people are finding value in that.
So the corresponding courses, how long do those take?
Roughly a week. So what they have is the exams themselves are only a couple hours. So usually we see a lot of training centers and IPC training partners. They provide the corresponding course and they break it down into modules. Our exams are modular. So we break down the knowledge content into X amount of modules, usually 5 to 7, depending on the endorsement. And they'll break it down on Monday, they'll teach module 1, maybe on Tuesday, they'll teach module 2 and module 3, but before they proceed into the next one, they take a break for 1 or 2 hours and the students and candidates take the certification exam that corresponds to it.
Okay. Do you see a lot of, maybe you have this information, maybe you don't, do you see a lot of people coming from outside of the industry getting a certification and then entering the industry, or more people inside the industry earning a certification?
These are very good questions. I am very happy with this group. We see a lot of people who are already in the industry. It doesn't hurt, and I will actually get to that now. So I will answer that question with the next few slides. Is certification right for me? This is perfect. It's like you guys saw the PowerPoint ahead of time. The certification depends on where you're at in your career. So certification in and of itself is just measuring the knowledge you have. If you are looking to acquire new knowledge or a different skill set, a training program may be better off for you. That indirectly answers the question of, do you see people coming into the industry taking it? Not really. Usually they've been in the industry for a little bit or have a background and knowledge of the electronics industry. So for example, if you're a student coming in and you have been studying the electronics industry and you know how electronics are made, you're getting some of that knowledge already. So if you're looking to enter the workforce, now may be a good time to consider certification for you. If you're not really sure and maybe you're not confident enough and you would feel a lot better with taking hands-on training or more in-depth research, we have a training program that would be fit. It's not certification, but acquiring that new knowledge would be made for training programs. And we usually see that those who have taken these training programs ahead of time then move on to certification once they feel more comfortable. So I think that was the main component. I think we can take more questions if there are any more. I hope that wasn't the last one, because I gave a 50,000 foot overview on very, very complex topics.
I don't have any from the crowd. I welcome others. I do have a question. So can you talk about the training programs a little more? I know it's not directly.
Yes. So, but that's good though. So we develop training programs that essentially are, like I mentioned before, like a crash course into the certification programs. It's where if you've been in the industry for a while, but you're unsure about certain topics, we break them down and go into in-depth. So for like 610, or we take a look at, cleanliness of the board and, everything like that. So they range from topic to topic. And each one has a wide variety of topics. All of these topics are included in the respective standards. And that way we make sure that, hey, if you're going to be focusing on 610, we're essentially quizzing you about the 610, or assessing your knowledge of the 610 is the better way to put it. But most students feel comfortable when it's like, oh, they're giving us a quiz on that or a test on that. It's essentially similar nomenclature. Did that answer that question, or would you like me to elaborate further?
No, that answers.
Okay.
Do we welcome any other questions from guests?
Those were very good, and those are very good from a very, very high level view of certification.
Okay. Charlene, do you have any questions or thoughts? Alrighty.
No, the only thing that I was wondering is what would make it easy for someone if I'm like a student, I potentially don't have any, experience. So I don't necessarily meet those endorsements that you've spoken about. What can I do to prepare myself to get a job? And is that a prerequisite in order to get a job or not?
No, so that's a very good question to ask. Certification is a credential. So the best way to describe that is it's a feather in your cap on your resume. Is certification required to get a job? That depends on the employer. I've known many of employers to say, yes, we need you to have this credential before we will even consider you for employment, because that credential means that you've met the minimum knowledge prerequisites that they are looking for in a job. So an example would be is we need to make sure that you're a CIS with a 610 endorsement, because our company is heavily involved with the use of 610 standards. They may look that you have the certification, and you may have to provide that before they'll hire you. Is it a prerequisite to get hired at any job? No, they vary by employer, but certification looks very good on anyone's resume, no matter what industry.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. That makes sense.
That was a good question too. And I do see that a lot from students is, well, do I have to have it in order to get a job? And that is in and of itself a difficult one, because it's based on the employer, but that is a frequently asked question.
And Joe, sorry, while I have you, I'm just thinking, so here I am, I want to apply for this job, right? Mm-hmm. And I need to get a specific certification. You also don't necessarily know what certification is linked to a specific job. You can have an associate's degree or a degree from a university in the field, but you wouldn't know because it's so specific.
Correct. So the certification in and of itself would be, if you're looking for a job, the employer would indicate what certification they are looking for.
Okay.
Usually employers have specific needs for specific roles within the industry. So for example, I'm going to use the one I didn't talk too briefly about, but our CEPM program, the Certified Electronics Program Manager. If you're a program manager in the industry, it may be a requirement to say, hey, we need somebody who has this skill set. And a way that we know that they've demonstrated this skill set is to have the CEPM certification. We want somebody who's met those requirements, have been in the field for three or 4 years, has done this job and has done it fairly well because someone else has assessed, namely IPC, has assessed their knowledge. So that may be the most common scenario that you'll see from employers when you're looking for a job, and that may be a minimum requirement when they're looking for, hey, your skill sets. Please apply if you're hardworking, knowledgeable about 610, but must also have the 610 or CEPM certification or CIT certification.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the most common scenario you guys will see when job searching.
Okay. And in terms of like the project, is it like the project management one that you've spoken about, or is it product management? I can't remember.
It's program management. So
Program.
That one is a unique one, and that encompasses a wide variety of topics. That information is on our website too. I can send a link or afterwards if they want to look into that specifically. But information about all of our certification programs are available on our website.
Mm-hmm. And then so I want to do the certification in, let's say, 610 or the J standard. I can read up on the website about the prerequisite, the requirements, all of those things. I don't need to be tied to an employer to do that, right?
No, you do not. So the credential is candidate based. And it's voluntary. So what that means is any candidate who chooses to obtain certification is allowed to do so as long as they meet the minimum prerequisites tied to the program. I know I said that word a lot. So within our policies and procedures, and each program has one, it kind of outlines this is what you need to do. And it walks you through the step, and anything and everything you want to know about the program is pretty much written in the policies and procedures document. It's about 40 something pages long, depending on which program. And it outlines everything from, the test to what knowledge domains it's covering to, here are the rules that candidates need to abide by, et cetera, et cetera. If a candidate is just looking to gather certification, I would recommend first always taking a look at the policies and procedures, and then locating one of IPC's partner certification centers. That list is also available on the website, and then reaching out to them to say, hey, I'm interested in obtaining one of IPC's certifications, but either A, I'm looking for the corresponding course, or I think I'm comfortable enough, can I just take the test, and then gathering more information from them and scheduling the perfect time that meets your needs.
Okay. And then price-wise, is everyone priced differently, or is there more like a standard fee?
So IPC has set fees for their assessments. The corresponding courses, if you want to take the training program, those vary by certification center because they may offer you a little more additional training based on what you require, or they may just say, here's the standard fees, you're just taking the IPC assessment, this is what it costs. IPC's fees are located all in the policies and procedures. There's a section for that as well. I believe for CIS, it's $65 if you're a member and $85 if you're not a member.
Okay. And one other thing, my mind is spinning. So if I do not necessarily have a training center close to me,
what do you do?
I go?
So wonderful. That's actually a very good question. Unfortunately, this pandemic is still ongoing, and we don't know when it's going to end. Back in March, IPC developed an integration into its Edge platform that allows for remote proctoring of the assessments. So if you are not taking one of our certification programs with a hands-on workmanship component, you can do this in the comfort of your own home.
So you don't have to go to a training center.
You don't have to go to the training center to take most of our certification programs anymore. You need to have a webcam, you need to have a microphone, and you need to have a computer that meets the minimum system requirements to deliver the assessment. But if you're taking a certification program without a workmanship component attached to it, you can take it from the comfort of your own home. You just have to ask the training center about remote proctoring.
Okay, that's
And
great.
Joe, how realistic is it for one of our students at any education level to self-study and just take the exam?
It's possible. It's always possible. So I would always encourage studying. That's the key word there. I've met many people who have been humbled by not studying for assessments, but it isn't too difficult. The better knowledge you have of the standard, the better off you will do.
Okay.
That goes to any assessment. Your level of preparedness usually correlates to the outcome. So I would always encourage briefly studying before taking any exam, especially a certification exam. But it should not, I don't think you're looking at 3 or 4 years of studying. I believe you can adequately gather the knowledge within a couple weeks of self-studying to a month or so.
Yeah, very good. And we do actually have one more question. So we talked about how you can use certifications to potentially get jobs. Excuse me. How do certifications help in promotions and growing your career after you've already started?
It is helpful. That depends on the employer, though. I have seen many people in the career in various fields leverage the certification for promotions. They've actually done studies from field to field. The electronics industry has not done one, or if they have, I'm not aware of it. But that is usually a good way to demonstrate that you are furthering your knowledge and that you are providing more value to the company or employer. That's not to say that getting certification will guarantee you a promotion, but it definitely will not hurt.
Mm-hmm. And I can add to that, we did a very small sample survey earlier this year, and we've asked about 20 industry members the value of a certification, and what does that contribute to an individual or a professional's career path. And majority of them, I believe 18 out of the 20, indicated that having a certification or wanting to do a certification definitely sets you up for success. And especially the IPC brand and the certifications coming through IPC carries a lot of weight. And the industry does regard that as a benchmark or as a level of expertise. So there's definitely value behind it.
6,900 companies can't be wrong. So that's
Exactly.
that's the nice, payout to that, and keeping track of those types of statistics on our side. So,
and can students join like a JTA committee, or is it only professionals?
Actually, yes, students can request to do that. So that is a nice mixture, and that is a very good question. When I reference subject matter experts, they are from all areas of the workforce. So if you recently graduated or have recently taken to a job, you can request to join them. Not everyone gets accepted, but everyone can be considered for them. These groups by nature are very small, and you only take 5 to 7 people, but it's very nice to have a large mix. And what every certification company every certification developer tries to do is to get a healthy mix of the true representation of the industry. So if you have someone who is fresh out of high school or fresh out of college entering the workforce and had been around for like 5 to 6 months, and they say, well, yeah, I want to be, on one of these committees, then we would take that experience and say, hey, you just entered the field. What did you know? What do you feel that every candidate entering the field needs to know? So that input is actually very valuable.
Yeah, different points of view.
Exactly. And we look forward with that when we're developing questions. So it may not be the job analysis one, but it may be the item development one, or it may be, the cut score workshop that we do later. But yes, I would encourage anybody who is interested to apply when openings appear.
All right. And if I have additional questions, who do I email?
So it depends on your question, but if it's certification related, there is a web address, I believe it's certifications@ipc.org. And that gets redirected to the certification department, and they can answer any questions about, you know, I'm taking the test. They won't answer any questions about the exam, but if you have problems that are, you know, occurring of like, hey, does my system meet the minimum system requirements? Or, hey, I'm unsure about, you know, this policy, what do you need? They can answer all of those questions.
Fantastic. Any more questions, anyone?
Those were all very good questions. I'm very impressed by this group.
Wonderful.
Great.
Okay, well, I suppose that is all. Thank you very much, Joe. We appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Insights.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks to everyone attending, and watch out for some more webinars coming up. We appreciate everyone sharing their knowledge and contributing, and we will connect soon. All right, have a good rest of your day.
All right.
All righty,
Bye.
bye.